What's up guys, Phil's here, and I've been testing out Jay's Legion Go for pretty much the past week, and got some thoughts on it. So let's jump right in and talk about what's different between this, the Ally, and my old Steam Deck.
Hey Jay. Jay. Jay.
What?
We got work to do.
Yeah!
I'm playing World of Warships. Yeah. World of Warships is the free-to-play naval strategy game where you command the most iconic and famous warships from World War I and World War II, recreated with stunning detail and accuracy. Build your fleet while participating in various game types while upgrading your ship's arsenal along the way. New players who sign up using my link below will receive an exclusive starter pack to get you up and running quickly by receiving 7 days premium time, 1 million credits, 300 doubloons, and the Tier 5 premium ship, the Exeter. So what are you guys waiting for? Start sinking ships with World of Warships by heading to the description below and getting your freebies.
Okay, so looking at the Legion Go, the first thing you'll probably notice is the screen size. It has an 8.8 inch, 2560 by 1600, 144 hertz, IPS touchscreen display. Now it is a bigger display and a faster display than the Ally, but one of the downsides of the Legion Go's display is unfortunately the fact that it's portrait native. The problem with a portrait native display on a handheld like this is a lot of older games may not be able to see the correct resolution because they're only looking at the actual native list of resolutions that the panel gives it. I had some issues with this on the Steam Deck when I was running Windows on the Steam Deck and trying to get Rocket League to work, because that is, I believe at the time it was a DirectX 9 title. They might have moved it to DirectX 11, but regardless, it's on a really old version of Unreal Engine. And I had to manually edit a config file to add the rotated portrait resolution that the Steam Deck's screen is. And you're gonna have that same weirdness with the Legion Go screen, just because of the fact that it's portrait native. The other downside about this display is that it does not have VRR. I suspect it has something to do with the fact that it's a portrait native display, but don't quote me on that, I'm not certain. But yeah, the lack of VRR is kind of annoying, although it is alleviated by the fact that it does run at 144 hertz. So you get faster refresh rate that tends to minimize tearing. However, tearing is noticeable on the display when games are running at frame rates that are not a integer multiple of 144. So let's move on to the next thing that you might notice about the Legion Go compared to any other PC handheld, and that is detachable controllers. Now, while it is a cool feature to be able to detach the controller, especially because the right controller does have an optical mouse sensor on the bottom of it, and you can put the right controller into what they call FPS mouse mode, which basically turns it into an optical mouse with a pistol grip for you to be able to play FPS games with a much more precise controller setup. The controllers themselves are noticeably larger and fill your hand out a lot more than the Ally does. So this is going to be a big thing for people with larger hands. Now, my smaller hands don't really mind the Ally, but I know that Jay made it a big point that the only reason he noticed this thing was because it was chunkier and bigger than the other PC handhelds. And when he went to hold on to it and play with it at Micro Center, it fit his hand so much better that that's pretty much the reason why he picked it up. So bigger hands, this is gonna be awesome for it. Oh, and I do like the trackpad. Now, the downsides about the controller is, Jay mentioned this in his first look video, but the fact that you can detach them doesn't really do anything. Like, you can still play with them separate, like a Wiimote nunchuck, but that's kind of weird. And they don't give you a solution like the Switch does, where it has kind of like a dummy controller shell that you can slide the controllers into, have a more ergonomic setup, and have it be one physical piece of a controller to use on a desktop or something like that. That seems like a pretty big missed opportunity, because it would have been nice to literally get a multi-purpose Xbox controller along with the tablet PC. But you can detach them and basically that's it. Like, you can just detach them and then use them as a separate controller. There's no extra functionality that's unlocked by this detachableness. I mean, besides the fact that you can do the FPS mouse thing. Another thing I didn't like about the controller, which honestly I think would be worse if you had bigger hands, was that the back buttons do not have enough resistance on them. So you can accidentally press them a lot, especially when trying to just like handle the console and kind of like hand it over to somebody or put it down on a desk where you're holding the whole weight of the thing with one hand. It's really difficult to not accidentally click those buttons on the back. Also, the vibration is like, really, that's what it feels like. I mean, I can't tell the difference between the Ally and the Legion's vibration. They're both crap. Oh, and my last big gripe, I think honestly the thing that just annoys me the most about this controller is these are not start and select. And yes, I refuse to call them view and menu or option and share. These should always be the start and select or view and option or options and share buttons. That's where they are on the actual controllers of the consoles. That's where they are. That's where they've been on like every controller since the beginning of time. So it's really annoying when you're playing a video game that you're used to hitting like start or select to bring up a menu, and then you're just accidentally bringing up the performance menu or something, or the Legion Space menu. So miscellaneous thoughts about the exterior, the design, and how it kind of physically handles. Kickstand is great, as you can tell. Like I have to use this 3-unit thing for this thing because that happens, because no kickstand built in. The dual USB-C ports are great. I love the fact that, yeah, you can stay charging while interfacing with other stuff. You have a USB stick or something, or you want to just get a crap ton of file transfers done real quick and you throw on a USB-C Ethernet adapter. Having an extra port is, I'm never going to say that's a bad thing. It literally only has one less port than this laptop. So that's better than 2 less ports than the laptop. So yeah. Another thing about the bottom USB-C port that feels like it's kind of following this theme of missed opportunity is that would have been amazing for a dock. That's the reason the Nintendo Switch has the USB-C port on the bottom, is that when you take the controllers off, it just slides right into the dock and then connects via USB-C. I was surprised to not see an OEM first-party dock on this, which, I mean, fine, like, you know, you could leave the third parties up to it. But it's another one of those things where, just like the detachable controllers, it kind of seems like, why is this here? You know, like, it's nice to have the extra USB-C port, but it just seems like they were going for this full Switch, like, Switch style, you know, use this thing in like 3 different ways, as a desktop or as a handheld or as a tablet while you're on the go with friends and stuff. But they just didn't do it all the way, if that makes sense. The not doing it all the wayness of it is on the controllers, it's on that USB-C bottom port. It seems like all of the defining features of Legion Go's design are kind of just there to be there, instead of like there for a greater purpose of making this into a more versatile machine. So it's just kind of weird. I mean, my feelings wouldn't be that different if it didn't have detachable controllers. And so that's the weird thing about it. I'm gonna get into a little bit of a rant on this segment just because we have to talk about Legion Space. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Armory Crate SE team has absolutely knocked it out of the park since day one from the Ally. They have been fixing pretty much every bug wrong with Armory Crate, and it is so nice of a UI to use. And I really didn't think so until I used Legion Space. But there's just the little things, the fact that like there's ads right here that you can't get rid of, and you can't customize the primary screen or tell it to start in the library screen like the Ally does. The Ally just shows you all your games that are installed by default, as it should be, right? Legion Space just feels so rough around the edges. There's things like the scaling of the game covers in the library screen is just, it looks bilinear, or to translate that for the layperson, like ass. Like it's inexcusable to not have anti-aliasing on a scaling thing in 2024 on a computer with a GPU. You can customize the target TDP, but you can't customize the short or long TDP, like turbo boost type things for AMD. The Legion L button, which is supposed to toggle open and closed Legion Space, when you close Legion Space and you're already in a game, it doesn't reattach the controller to the game. Oh, and you can't customize the power button RGB. You can turn it on and off, and you can customize the options for the stick RGB, not as good as Asus, but I mean, obviously, or they've been at Aura for like 10 million years. So, but yeah, you can customize the power button RGB. Just little things like this that are just kind of like, okay, so let's move on from design and look and feel and talk about performance for a little bit. I mean, spoiler alert, it's literally the exact same APU that's in the Ally, so performance essentially is going to be identical. The only factors that are going to affect the performance between the two devices is the fact that this screen is a higher resolution by default. So if you're running a game on both of them at native res with FSR performance, the Legion Go will be rendering more pixels than the Ally, just because of the fact that the screen has more pixels. So you have to take that into account when you're tuning your performance and settings for your games on this thing. It's essentially double a Steam Deck's resolution. All that being said, I'm not really gonna show you that many benchmarks here just because, again, it's the exact same chip. It performs the same, crunches the same numbers at just the same speed. There's a little bit of a difference with Legion Go's tuning of their TDP. Their performance mode is tuned to a 20 watt sustained TDP, whereas the Allies is 25 watt. Now that's going to affect battery life, which we'll talk about in kind of later on the battery life section. But it is interesting that they have a bigger battery and their performance mode is tuned to lower power than the Allies performance mode. And I do think that Lenovo has picked a good sweet spot for the performance, the default setting, because 20 watts is usually where you start to see the worst of the diminishing returns begin as you up the TDP and the battery sucking rate of the device. As an example of the diminishing returns, here's the Ally and the Legion Go's 3D Mark TimeSpy scores and how they're affected by TDP. This is the overall score because since we are adjusting an overall system TDP slider, I figured I would just put the overall score into here. But as you can see on the graph, right around 20 watts is where you start to not keep picking up performance. As you can see, as we go from 8 watts all the way up to that 15 to 20-ish range is where the performance uplift kind of stays in step with the power draw. So this one does have faster memory, 7,500 megatransfers per second versus 6,400 on the Ally. However, that performance gain that it gets from that extra speed RAM is kind of offset by the fact that the screen is higher resolution than the Ally. So it's kind of a bit of a give and take. Now that means that yes, if you do lower the settings on the Legion Go to the same rendering resolution as the Ally, then you're going to get slightly better performance just because of the fact that RAM speed is important for these APUs. The fact that the system RAM is also the VRAM means that any extra megatransfers per second that you can get is going to help the performance. So let's talk about battery life. Now, I just kind of went and did the calculations for the theoretical longest battery life that you can get out of the battery given the battery pack's capacity and the power draw of the system. Now, one important factor with this is how much power does the system itself draw, not the game. So at idle, at the desktop without anything besides the Armory Crate app and the Legion Space app open on both devices, both in performance mode, but just idling and brightness at full. What did each device draw? So the Ally in this test drew 8 watts of power at idle, and the Legion Go draws 11 watts of power at idle, which makes sense. It's almost a 2-inch larger display. It's higher resolution, so even then at the desktop, the GPU is doing technically a little bit more work. But this increased system power draw is also paired with a 49 watt hour battery versus the 40 watt hour battery in the Ally. So here's the numbers for the shortest possible battery life that you'll get given each capacity and the TDP setting of the device. Keep in mind the Legion Go is at 20 watts of TDP, whereas the Ally is at 25 watts of TDP in performance mode. You see the Legion Go pulling 95 minutes of life, whereas the Ally is only about 72, just because of the fact that its TDP is higher and has a smaller battery. Now, both balanced profiles on either device are 15 watts, and so here you can see the Legion Go's advantage with having a larger battery, in that it'll last about 7 minutes longer. Again, that larger battery is being partially offset by the fact that the system power draw is larger, just because of the screen and all that other stuff. So you can see how the extra battery capacity in the Legion Go helps it out a little bit, but in most cases, it's going to be comparable to pretty much every other handheld with a 40-ish watt-hour battery. So for $700, $750 as pictured, because Jay went and got the 1 terabyte model, is it worth it for the money? Now, Jay gave me an interesting idea for this video. He was like, hey, compare desktops and laptops that are roughly around the same money to see what kind of performance you get, but the trade-offs that you also have to make with that sort of stuff. So around the $750 price point, Lenovo themselves sells the LOQ16APH8. Now that laptop is 1080p as opposed to 1600p on this screen, but it has an RTX 4050, which is gonna get you 3-ish to maybe 4-ish times the performance of the Z1E's built-in GPU. So for less money than this, we have the MSI Bravo 15 for $700 at Best Buy, which is also a full HD 1080p 144 Hz monitor. This laptop has a RX 6550M, which scores about 1.5 times to 2 times as fast as the Z1E's GPU. We got the iBuyPower Ready Element MR001 for $850, so $100 more than this. But it is a RX 6500 XT, and it's a desktop, which means super easily expandable and upgradable. And then last but not least, I threw in the NZXT BLD Player 1 for $800. That has an RTX 3050, which is going to be, again, 2 to 3 times as quick as the GPU in the Z1 Extreme. So yeah, you can get a desktop or laptop for a comparable price, but what you're gaining in performance is obviously pretty much exactly what you're giving up in portability. Like, the laptop technically counts as portable, however, a lot of PC gaming laptops don't even let you hit full TDP on battery power, whereas these handheld devices, since they're designed for this sort of stuff, you can smash this thing against the TDP limit of 30 watts all day long and it'll do it until the battery dies in about 95 minutes or less. So to kind of wrap things up in here, it's a tried and true APU in a package that feels like it's kind of just trying to do too many things. And they didn't really, it's like Lenovo just kind of threw everything at the wall and saw what stuck. There are some good ideas like the trackpad, like the bigger controllers and bigger battery. There are some ideas like the detachable controllers that they didn't give you any other things to do, like cool things to do with it, like have it be a desktop controller with like a controller shell or whatever. And then there's more wide decisions like, why are there 2 USB-C ports, especially one on the bottom when they don't even have an OEM dock solution? Nice big high-res display, although it's portrait native and there's no VRR. Bigger battery, but higher system draw because of the bigger display. I think it'll be an awesome fit for somebody that leans more towards the tinkerer space and is fine with dealing with third-party solutions for that sort of docking and stuff. Because I feel like this could be more multi-purpose than just something like an Ally where, you know, the form factor just kind of limits it into one specific purpose. It has the potential to be something interesting aside from a handheld gaming console, but Lenovo themselves didn't supply you with that half of the equation. Like, I'm sure there's somebody out there, there's some super nerdy viewer out there that has a use for a 9-inch Windows PC tablet that's super thick that also has attachable controllers. For someone out there, this thing is gonna be awesome. But I think the biggest thorn in the Legion Go's side, unfortunately for Lenovo, is going to be the fact that ASUS has lowered the price of the Ally to $599. So for $100 less than the starting price of this, you're gonna get the same APU, the same storage, the same expandable storage options, which is micro SD card. You get one less USB-C port, but the screen has VRR and it's landscape native, so you don't have any trouble with weirdness or software incompatibilities or that sort of stuff. But $100 less in a device that costs $600 to $700, that's a pretty big chunk of the device to spend extra on here and not get any more performance. So it's gonna be up to you whether or not the larger screen and the larger form factor and that controller comfort, you might end up being like Jay, where the controller comfort, I mean, you know, with a handheld, the controller comfort is going to be a big priority. So yeah, like there are a lot of people out there that the Ally is just straight up too small and they're just gonna cramp their hands instantly the moment they play with it for more than 5 minutes. So in that case, yeah, the Legion Go is going to be your choice. So yeah, it's basically, do you need the larger screen and the larger controller in your handheld? It's gonna be awesome for people that do, because this controller does feel great as far as ergonomics and the way that the triggers are sculpted and that sort of stuff. But if you don't, and you've held an Ally or a Steam Deck or something like that, and are fine with this form factor, you could save $100. And also the Steam Deck OLED still exists if you want a really, really nice looking screen. So what do you guys think? Would you spend the extra $100 because you want the bigger screen and the bigger controller, save a little bit of money, get an Ally? Or are you just saying, screw it, I'm gonna stick with my Switch and my PC combo because I can play pretty much everything that I want to play on either device? Sound off in the comments down below. If you guys own a Legion Go or any other handheld PC that I freaking am obsessed with and love these things, let me know how your experience is and how you think the competition is shaping up. I'm really interested to see how the MSI Claw is gonna do, because that's the first non-AMD Z1 handheld PC that we've seen in a while. But for now, we have these freaking awesome, super tried and true, solid APUs that are in these devices. So it's basically just pick your form factor. And I think that's a great thing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. What's up, guys? Phil's here. Yeah, I am here, I guess. That's usually what you have to do to film a video.